So our next speaker, we were going to do a one-on-one, but looking at the size of this crowd, I suspect most of you have lots of questions. So our next speaker is going to speak for about 10 minutes, and we'll open it up. It's Sir Tim Berners-Lee, perhaps best known for his starring role in the 2012 London Olympics opening ceremony. He also invented the web, and he founded the World Wide Web Foundation. He's a professor at MIT, and today he's going to talk about how to fix some of the things that Renee was talking about. Tim.
Thanks. Wow. Hard to follow already coming up and just explaining what a dystopian space we live in. And I can't fix them all. But a lot of people at the moment, of the list of things, of serious issues with this, a lot of people end up worrying about the bottom one on the list, which was privacy. And in a way, that has been a hook for the Solid project. Hands up, how many people in this room have come across the Solid project and know what it is? How many people, what? Right, majority of what? Okay, so we got this project called Solid. It was solid.mit.edu, and now it's, and just the reason why you haven't heard about it, partly that it's only broken the surface of the water. And the Solid, the new website just came live a couple of weeks ago, and so you're forgiven for not having come across it. But Solid, as a project, in a way, it's just to improve the web a bit. It's to use all the same web protocols, but it's in a way, to revolutionize the way it works. So socially, the privacy thing is Solid thinks that you should have complete control of all your data. You should control all your data. And so that is difficult to achieve. You think, well, it's all on Facebook controls it. Okay, well, never mind about Facebook. Okay, imagine we build it, never mind how many billions of people on Facebook, that's irrelevant. We're going to build a small community in which we believe that people should completely own their data. And so to be able to control your data, that means you've got to be able to choose where it's stored. So that means you've got to be able to have several places, well, at least one place to store it. If you go to solid.community or inrupt.net, then you'll be able to go and get yourself an account there, and that will give you a place to store some data. That'll be in a cloud that at the moment is run by Inrupt. Down the road, clouds will be run by all kinds of people. You will have personal clouds, and hopefully you'll be able to find people who run them that you really trust. And sometimes you may decide that rather than just using free stuff, I will pay some money for a piece of personal cloud, a piece of personal storage. These things, we call them pods, by the way. Now, I have a lot, or you may be, if you're a geek, and quite a lot of you in this room are geeks, so you may go straight back, buy a 19-inch rack, fill it full of servers, and that is your Solid pod, and start offering Solid pods to you and your friend. So I've got a Solid pod at home. In the US, that means under American law, rather than subpoenaing a Dropbox to get to my data, then the American police would have to get a search warrant to go through my house. So some people really take a group of people who were one end of the spectrum. Whatever they are, these are even better. So these are Solid stickers, and if you can't get them from here, you can get them from finding our table. When you the rest of the day, but so upstairs, and so Solid started off being about driven by privacy, feeling that I want to be able to just arrange to meet somebody, discuss a topic, I want to have a chat without it contributing to all that stuff. I don't want it to contribute to the monetization data stream. I don't want it contributing to people knowing and understanding more about me, targeting more effectively in advertising. I don't want it to contribute to people being manipulated politically. I just wanted it to sit there under my control. And so, the Solid architecture then is that the apps and the data are completely separate. That means that is a big change If you're a developer, then this is, in a way, really, really cool. It means that instead of building, normally, if you're a developer, you build the front end, which is the bit in the JavaScript, in the browser, which talks to the user, and you build the back end, which runs on the server. It has bits of PHP and Node and stuff, and databases. And every time you add a new feature to the front end, you want to add a new feature, new concept, then you have to change the back end and the front end. But Solid is sort of revolutionary in the sense that we have a common back end. There is no more back end programming. When you can develop Solid apps, you don't do any back end development at all. Your Solid apps will run on any platform. When your app runs, it asks the user, so where do you want this stored? And the user points you at their storage. And when you get the right to read and write stuff from storage, but also, because this is all linked data. So in fact, when you start using the user's story, you're not in fact living in a world where I'm just having this chat and I'm just sharing it only with myself. The really cool, the powerful thing about Solid is you can share anything with anything. So you can choose where you store data, you can choose who you share stuff with, and the idea is that because it's a general platform where everybody can have ID, you can have more than one ID for different personas that you can have, but anybody who gives you a business card with a Solid ID on it, you can take that business card home and you can go to that address and then you can drag their URL into your access control panel for the photographs or whatever it is you want to share with them, and you can get them access. So you can give, for the moment, for example, in reality, if you can go to the hospital website and you can share your medical stuff with your doctor, and they're set up to share things so long as they are medical tests and results of diagnoses and things. Okay, and meanwhile, in a completely different site, you can share things. You can share your photos with your family and friends who are on some social network, but you can't share. If you take a picture of your knee, you can't share it with your doctor. And in fact, you want to share your medical stuff with your cousin. But all this stuff is in silos. The Solid is about breaking down the silo. Solid chops them each one in two. And so if you want to build, you can take your silo, your existing silo, it may be a wonderful app, and you can go away after you've heard this talk and chop it in two and take all the user interface stuff, which is wonderful and allows people to do wonderful things and collaborate, and just make it run on top of a server. And when make it run on top of a Solid pod, when the Solid pod is a generic API. Okay, so Solid is it's a standard. Mostly, it's just HTTP. It's HTTP, and it's also access control standards. So it's not just HTTP. We have to add things to it. It's also, we've got things like standards for storing contacts, so that any app can access your contact information and things like that. So it's a standard. We've got a company. What's exciting from my point of view is the first time in a gazillion years, like since the 80s, I'm now working with a startup. And it's called inrupt.com, and inrupt has also, so what's been nice is we've been able to wires this. For several years we had nice research funding to do it at MIT. Now it's appropriate now to just be able to put more energy into it. So we have commercial funding from Glasswing Ventures, among others, and to make this thing happening, so we could put people on making documentation. We have a finite number of people. So in fact, what Inrupt has done also is benefited just in the few days that it's been running. We've had this tremendous surge of people just arriving online. People arriving here as well. When we in the science, we had a table in the science fair. I'm sorry if I heard from somebody today who couldn't get to it because he couldn't, because there were too many people. But you can go there. We'll have upstairs, and you can get stickers there. Still, so what's been amazing about it has been the amount of enthusiasm out there. I suppose some people say your documentation is non-existent. I've blogged. This is. I tried. I poked all the buttons. I figured out how it worked, and this is my blog. And we had a couple of people doing that, which is totally wonderful. Other people, and so now we have got, and we've got a GitHub channel for discussing the documentation problems and creating groups of people to create documentation. We've got people working on different aspects of the software, of the server. The server is something which basically that's most developed. So you can get the developed, you can install it. It's npm install node solid server, and it should run. Go onto a Gitter channel if you need help getting it running. The apps are really sort of early days, because the idea is to get the server. The community needs to create a server. Once it's created a server, then everybody can make apps. We've got some apps. I've got some apps. I run a lot of my life on apps. Most of my life actually runs using solid apps. But the idea is that there will be thousands of flowers blooming, millions of flowers blooming on the apps. But the work that goes into the back end, into the solid servers, will have them written in different languages. If you're interested, Go programmer, see me afterwards. And so, for example, but the way the architecture works is the work on the server is finite. We have to maintain it. We have to make new versions and stuff, and all the energy goes into the app, because the apps run in the browser, or they run on on a person's computer. They run and the spirit of a solid app is it works on behalf of the user. When you're writing your solid app, you are not trying to trick them. We're going to have a concept of a beneficent app, and maybe a brand. So maybe beneficentapps.org, talk to us about it. Where if you put the beneficent app brand on it, it means you have sworn as a developer to act, that your software will act on behalf of the user. You will not try to trick them into buying something in the middle of what they're doing. You will try to help them concentrate on what they're doing. You will help them collaborate. You'll help them communicate. And so that is the spirit. It's a new spirit. People say, where are you going to get, who's going to fund it? If it's going to be advertising? Well, guess what? I think that we've got also a lot of people who are, after the fake news wave, are saying, you know what? I realized I have to pay. I urgently need to pay for news, because I want to pay for somebody to figure out to tell me things that I can trust. I realize actually I'm prepared to pay. You give me free data, yeah, but I might just pay for this data storage, because I respect that this data storage that I'm using, the solid pod, doesn't abuse me, and I'll pay for that to keep the whole system going. And I'll use open source apps, but I will donate to them to keep the developers food on the table, because I really respect these apps, because these apps, they're called user agents. Mozilla, Firefox is a user agent. Technically, it's called user agent. That was the term for the client, and the idea of that was it represents the user. That's kind of been lost. That's coming back, because solid apps are user agents. They work on behalf of users. It's a new revolution. It's different, but very, very exciting. Do join in. Thank you for your attention. And we have time for questions.
Just on the practicalities, how are we going to convince the current sets of siloed data to open it up, like hospitals or whatever? Because that seems like a long road.
Well, it's funny you should say that. And in fact, that's been one of our concerns, is how are we going to... Suppose people have got all their data in a silo. But mind you, just recently, a few weeks ago, did you come across the data transfer project? So the data transfer project is Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, and Twitter, and their partners just announced in the data transfer project. By the way, we will all give you the technical ability to download your data from one silo and move it into another silo. So that means you can download it, period. So you can go to, and Google already done this. So you can go to Google Takeout. And in fact, Apple wasn't in that list, but a few days later, Apple announced they have and I've just tried it out myself. So you get, you say, I want all my data, and they say, well, when you say all data, here are 30 different classifications of data. What do you want? And then we will prepare it for you, and then you can download it. And then you come back to the site a little while later, and they prepared for you an archive file, and you can put it on your computer, and you can unwrap it. And so what we're working on now is for all the difference, and this is, yes, help would be lovely from the open source community, is writing the code to take it from Google format and Apple format and so on, and convert it into solid format so that you can run your apps directly. So instead of moving it back into another silo to do your photos, actually you use your favorite open source photo editor and photo slideshow manager and stuff you pick your solid apps. The great thing about solid, is you can use lots of different apps, and you can at the same time on the same data. So you can also, if there's any app, if you're a developer, you can fork, any app that you don't particularly appreciate, you can fork it and make it better and so it works. So the Google Data Transfer Project is one example. Why, you ask them why they did that, and they all say out of the goodness of their hearts, and because they believe that they feel that if you as a user, they feel that they should set the bar high, so that if you stay with us, it isn't because you haven't been able to leave, it's because we've provided you with the best experience. Mind you, there is DTP. There's regulation, so that that may well have a big. Other things. So that's in. So you ask banking. There's already open banking in the UK. So bit by bit, I think, given open banking, given DTP, if you're something else, like if you're a fitness machine, if you go to a fitness machine company and say I want my data, then then there are plenty of you can go to a different gym if this one won't give you your data. So I think there will change. We've reached a tipping point, and that this tipping point is just realizing that your data belongs to you and it's your right.
Hi. We've heard about the tragedy of today's web.
You've got the mic, but where are you?
I'm here in the middle.
Okay.
GitHub perpetuates this tragedy. It tracks users and non-users alike. It replaces Git's inherently distributed workflow with a centralized one. It requires proprietary software. It has vendor lock-in. It blocks innocent users based on their location alone. Many ethical alternatives exist. So why do you host Solid on GitHub?
Good question. First of all, because what should we what would be better than GitHub? Well, obviously a slight modification which I've been suggesting to all my friends who code every few weeks is that please can we have something which will take all of use the GitHub API to extract all of the status of all of the pull requests, all of the stuff which is GitHub but not Git, and put it into Git, so that you have a repo which has got and you have a meta repo which has got all the discussion, so that in fact the whole thing is distributed, so that you can then run it on, and then you can. The idea is so. Then what I'd like to do is yes, you could use an open source alternative silo, or help us code a solid app, so that anybody on any solid pod can just say, I'm going to be opening a GitHub-like repository. What does it need? It needs being able to explore files. It needs some basic UI, which isn't rocket science. It's got chat. We've got chat code. So we've got quite a lot of the pieces of it. So yeah, I think a distributed to be able to say, this is my repo on my solid pod, and every repo and allow people to clone it. And they clone it. They end up cloning not only the code, but also all of the discussion as well. So that will be far better. Yes. At the moment, we're on GitHub. If you do talk to us, we'd love to. If you which would you recommend, like GitLab or well, we used. Yeah, Git is distributed. The problem is the social piece of it. The pull requests are not. So that's what we want to move forward. So yeah, so I think that a good step for the community to do is to have a standard for all of for all the social piece of GitHub. I agree, and it's very ironic that this wonderful decentralized web community all are centralized on GitHub. Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much for over here. Thank you very much for the presentation. You've spoken about the privacy standpoint around Solid and the idea of trust. Could you speak a little bit about the potential for the Solid platform in terms of truly anonymous interaction?
Sure. So when you interact online, I think the Solid platform, in a way, a lot of the apps that we're building are for collaboration, and they're often collaboration between people, like people in this room who collaborate, whether with a professional identity. And so if you're in this room, when you put up your sites, you want people to know your LinkedIn profile, if you use LinkedIn, your Twitter profile, and you want you to know where you've published your papers, and so to a certain extent, there's a role for data about people which is very, very open and public. But then if you're a whistleblower, if you're then going to go into a mode where you want to do something quietly, or you want to have a very different. So we'll start with, you can have as many you can have as many Solid IDs as you want, and you don't have to have any connection between them. One of the things you can do, which is quite neat, is, for example, you can, if I happen to know you through a completely different, who are sailing together or something, it may be that I will know that your moniker in the sailing club is the same as your moniker that you use when you go to MozFest. And so I might be able to, so when I look at your stuff, I might see all of your blogs on both sides because you've told me. But I store that little piece of information very privately in my contacts, for example. So there are interesting things you can do there. But also you can also mint a Solid ID, not attach anything to it at all. Go and make your point. Go through Tor to a Solid provider, mint something, have your discussion, make your point, and then disappear. And
here. So the question is here. The question is, what would you build with $1 trillion? And you can't say Solid.
If I had $1 trillion, I would build. Well, I'd start by making the distributed Git. But what I would build $1 trillion stuff with, but it would all be based on Solid. It would all be Solid compatible. They'd all be Solid apps. So I'm not going to build anything now which isn't Solid compatible because it's just I don't want to. I'm not going to build a silo app. I am just going to build everything that works with Solid. But do you have the check?
Quick question. Technically, it sounds very elegant. I just wondered if there's any environmental concerns with kind of moving to such a decentralized model. Because, I mean, I guess, say what you like about Facebook, Google, they obviously have learned how to build very efficient, large-scale data centers. And I just wondered if there are any concerns around decentralizing in that way, or advice you might have.
It's a good question. So I'm not an expert on the ecological efficiency of my brother is closer to that. I'll ask him, Mike. But so it is a good question. I think I've never been sure whether all our worry about the huge data centers is whether in fact it's as serious as worrying about everybody having a computer they leave running and so on. And if you do have a server at home, then it does have to kind of stay on. But so building servers which can be which wind down gently, don't have fans, and for example, and the art of building servers like that is quite important. I think that in fact, Solid. I imagine a lot of the Solid pods will be on machines that hold between 1,000 and 100,000, and many of them will have many more, so there will be big providers. But on the other hand, it is nice that you can get a Raspberry Pi and you can put a disk on it and you can download the Solid server on it, and people have done that. So they've got Solid pods running on Raspberry Pis. Now, Solid Raspberry Pis, it might turn out to be horribly inefficient if they are the way everybody store their data. But it's very cool to be able to put all your data just on a Raspberry Pi, gotta say. So, and the total effect on the environment. Yeah, we should think about it down the line. Some interesting PhDs about the spirit of being free with your own Raspberry Pi. I think we'll just have to. The planet will have to cope with the warming that it introduces. Good question, though.
Hi, sorry. Turn around.
Oh.
Is there going to be some sort of moderation on what data is actually stored on pods, on the Solid pods? Because not too long ago, this great new system for sharing files came around called BitTorrent, but these days people use BitTorrent to download pirated media. So how are you going to maybe protect Solid not becoming that?
Really good question, because but other people would say, how can you, will you promise not to stop Solid becoming that? So people say, if I use Solid, but I should be able to use it for my pirated media. So some people wonder the stream will say, but that's free speech to be able to send all my pirated media. So what is tricky at the moment? So I think, so related questions to that, I'm less worried about, well, in fact, I'm more worried in a way, yes, I am worried about people abusing Solid in lots of different ways. That's one. If the Article 13 gets through the European Parliament, which got through the European Parliament, if it becomes law, then that's a law that's coming along, which would mean that I would have to not only take down stuff that Disney tells me is infringing, but also construct my servers so that nobody could ever upload them again. That would be, we can't do that with our Solid software. We can't do that with our team. We haven't got time. And anyway, we talk about privacy, so we're not going to have adults rummaging through all our users' files to find out whether they're pornographic or whether they're pirated and so on. So that is not a simple question to answer. I think, but following on the previous talk, in a way, a question I'm in a way more interested in, which is more important for the planet than parrot, because the copyright system is kind of broken anyway. But hate speech and radicalization online. Yeah, anybody, if you want to radicalize people, invite them to your Solid community. It's a great way of starting a new separate community in which you create a world of completely fake values and so on. So I think when you look up WhatsApp, WhatsApp groups were used to get people to believe that they should slaughter the Rohingya, for example, in Myanmar, and they did slaughter people in Myanmar, and Facebook run WhatsApp, but they couldn't really do anything about it because they can't file on it because it's encrypted, and that's the way people like it. And so there's lots of tricky questions about if you want to build a system. On one extent, we should build a system where people's privacy is to a large extent is assured. But then, how do you? There's always been this conflict between the needs of law enforcement and the needs of the privacy of reasonable human beings, and that's always a debate. In this country, it swung recently quite a lot over towards the demands of law enforcement. Okay, so is the...
So my question is, how can we help? How can we partner, and how can we help promote Solid? I'm based here east in the Olympic Park, and I know there's a big data project there about how they can use people's data to help them navigate the park, with a view to actually extending that. If it works for the park, it's going to work for London and beyond. So my question is, how can we help?
So, involve Solid in your project. Build the apps so that they store users' data. If you have to user data, ask them to log in with Solid, and then you'll have access to their pod as a read-write space, and you can store all the history of them wandering around the park and what they like, and there, and then you can allow them to share it with people if they wanted to, or otherwise not share it, depending on what they were doing in the park, I suppose. And so there's, that's a great example of a civic app, if you like, where you're building it for the community. One thing is you could have a solid pod where you put all the park data, and you actually you have one run by the town, run by the project, which says we're going to have the discussions about what we should do with the park, or about what would be better instead of that ugly thing in the park. Those we're going to host, and we're going to store them. You can keep copies of them, but we're going to store them on our pod because it's ours. It's a civic thing. This is an open publication, and the chat will be archived, and it will be available forever, and people will be able to understand why we came to these discussions. So when you're doing civic things, having a pod which uses the same architecture, but it says let's be open about this and lock it open, is great. But people meanwhile come along and put the bookmark, particular part of they can put their bookmarks of the parts they like in their own solid private places, so that nobody needs to know which bits they like. Yeah, talk to us afterwards.
I think that's an excellent way to end, especially with the nice circularity of the Olympic Park. Thank you. Everyone, we're going to break for lunch for an hour and a half. So Tim, thank you very much. Come back at 3:15, please. There's more to come.